First Paw Media. You are listening to Mushing on First Paw Media. Visit our website at mushing.com.
Hello and welcome. This is Robert, and you are listening to our 2024 Iditarod coverage here on the Burled Arch. And tonight I am joined by my co-host, Michele. How's it going today?
It is going great, Robert. I can't wait to get into it tonight.
We have a lot going on out on the trail. It has been a very busy 24 hours for sure. So let's start off of where people are at. We are recording this at about 6:45 Alaska time on Monday. So in first place at mile 60 is Dallas Seavey. About 19 miles behind is Jesse Holmes, followed by Matt Hall, Travis Beals, Jeff Dieter, and Paige Drobny. And at the back of the pack, we have Bryce Mumford, Josh Robbins, Laurel Eklund, Jeff Reed, and Benjamin Good. So we have a lot to report tonight. First off, we had a couple of scratches. Aaron Burmeister scratched in Uniclete. Hunter Keefe also scratched in Uniclete due to Rule 42. And unfortunately, we have another dog death to report. George in Hunter Keefe's team passed away pretty close in terms of trail closeness as the dog, what's his name? Boog? Bog, as Bog did yesterday. So unfortunately, that's two dogs that have passed away today. And there's a lot of back and forth about that online, and I don't want to get too far into it, but it concerns me as a dog musher anytime a dog passes away. It is definitely emotional, of course, for everybody that's involved with Iditarod, but also for dog lovers around the world. So this is not to be taken lightly. I know they always say it's all about the dogs, and unfortunately, the dogs do not get the stories and the coverage that they should unless something like this happens. So thank goodness people are talking about it, and there has been going on some back and forth. Michele, what do you think about this? It's been a couple of years since a dog has passed away on the trail, and now we have two in about 24 hours.
Robert, did Deke have to scratch as well?
Yep, Deke scratched as well. Apologies for that. So we've had 3 scratches in the last 24 hours.
It's always sad and concerning when we hear of a dog death of any kind in any aspect, whether it be a personal dog or a dog that we don't know, but we're following on a race like Iditarod. And there's so many variables that can come into play. And as much as we don't like to speculate, there are circumstances and factors that we can speak upon. The rigorousness of the race, the overall health and well-being of the dog before the race, but also during the race. If that dog wasn't eating enough or became ill during the race or experienced diarrhea or dehydration, there's lots of things that can come into play for how a dog can become compromised and then die. There's also the factors that we don't know, heart conditions, genetic conditions that we won't discover until a dog does die. One of the number one reasons that dogs die during these races that has been discovered in the past is due to aspiration pneumonia.
And that is where a dog will throw up as it's running, and that will get ingested into their lungs, and then that will turn into pneumonia, which will cause some severe complications. Other issues are ulcers, and as Michele mentioned, many genetic issues that can crop up. And I know that we talked about just the other day about doing all of the pre-race checks, including EKGs and all of that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, in these two dogs' case, we will not know for sure. The initial autopsy was done on Bog yesterday or today, and they said that it was inconclusive. So now that they will look at the tissues and all that to hopefully find out a reason why. But remember, if a dog does expire on the trail, pretty much the musher has to scratch immediately. And that's what happened to Hunter and to
Isaac Tieford.
And that is where Rule 42 comes in. So we do have 2 mushers that have scratched because of that, and then all of the others put out that it was in the best interest of the team, including Aaron Burmeister, who said that it was in the best interest as well as the mental health and well-being of the team as well. And I always wonder how much the musher side of that comes into play. So let's jump into some other stories that we want to mention today. The first one right off the top is Bryce Mumford, who is about 15 hours behind Dallas on the trail, and that can be concerning in a bunch of different reasons. Now, of course, he is probably running a relatively conservative race, but it looks like he spent all of that time in the checkpoint of Galena. And that is a little bit of an anomaly. Most of the time, if you do your 24 and then do your 8, you typically don't spend much more time past that. And I have not seen any stories as of right now of why he spent all of that extra time in Galena. He could have been dealing with a bug throughout the dog team, or maybe he is dealing with a bug himself, or one reason or another. It could be why he spent all that time. But the key is how far now he is back behind the leaders. And this is where Rule 36 comes involved, which is the competitive nature of the team. And if a dog team / musher falls too far behind, they will have a quote unquote talking to by the race officials, and they will say, you got to move down the trail or we're going to have to make a decision here. And often that decision is you can either scratch or we're going to withdraw you from the race. So I don't know what the deal is with Bryce.
Well, Robert, he is also of note 44 miles right now outside of Caltag, which is where Joshua Robbins is currently resting. Laurel Eklund just took off from there about 10 minutes ago. And so I would imagine if Bryce can get into Caltag before Joshua leaves, he might be okay with that rule still.
Well, on the tracker, it shows that Josh obviously has taken his 8-hour rest. So he is there and ready to leave at any time. And Bryce is currently running, but he's running at 6.5 miles an hour, which is about a 7-ish hour or so run from where he's at right now to Caltag, which is a very long time because that is now 7 more hours that is spreading out on the trail. So we'll have to see what's going on with him in the next day or so, and hope all is well. I'm sure we will get a report on that soon. The next thing I would like to mention is our possible Rookie of the Year, and that's Josie Tier. This is obviously her rookie run, and she is doing very well out there. Remember that the Rookie of the Year honors goes to the top rookie that finishes. So if she finishes first out of all the rookies, she will get that award. And one of the perks of that award or receiving that is a free entry into next year's race. Another cool story was posted by Larry Doherty early this morning, and he was talking about his son Calvin getting ready to come up onto the coast. And he said that after all of those miles, when you finally get that view of the coast, it's absolutely breathtaking. He said it was his coolest spot on his Iditarod run. And he said something that I was not aware of. He said that is the first time that you can truly see the trail out in front of you. And I thought about that for a little bit and thought, I wonder if you're going through the Alaska range, and I'm sure you can see a little bit of the trail down the mountain, but I would imagine that is a relatively short portion of the trail. But I can imagine sitting up top of the Blueberry Hills there, getting ready to come down onto the coast, and you can literally see for miles if the weather is clear. So I would imagine that is one heck of a view. I always get a kick out of when you're driving in those open spaces and you can literally see for miles and miles. I remember one time I was driving from Las Vegas. I was driving through the desert there, heading down south to go scuba diving. And I looked out into the expanse in my little rental car, and they have no speed limit down there. And I was putzing away. And the next thing you know, I looked down at my speedometer. I'm going well over 100 miles an hour. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is probably the fastest I've ever gone in a rental car. But then I thought, my goodness, how far can I see right here? And I made a mental note of the distance, and then I checked my odometer and ticked off the miles to where I got to, and I could actually see for 19 miles on that open road. And it's definitely a cool experience, and I can only imagine what it's like on the dog team as well. So, Michele, before we talk about pizza and peace on earth, do you have any other notable stories that you want to mention?
I discovered this morning that Calvin is an Eagle Scout.
He is, and he did some type of Eagle Scout project on the Yukon River, so he is no stranger to this neck of the woods, is he?
That's right. And they also shared a very cool story about how restorative Old Woman Cabin can be.
Yeah, what did they say?
That it's very restorative. It has some very good vibes, and it's got a lot of lore behind it. You need to offer the old woman candy and all of that. And I love how Larry is really diving deep into some of the stories along the way. And if you guys don't follow that family, or you're not fans because you're unfamiliar with Larry and Calvin, I really do encourage you to go out and check out what they're all about. They do so much for the community and raising awareness. And Larry is a leader as well as a coach and doctor, and he's got so much going on. So it's well worth giving them a little bit of a checkout.
And we did talk about the party at Old Woman Cabin. I guess that was on yesterday's podcast. They're all sort of running together now that we're into the second week of our coverage. And several mushers were camped out there and hanging out and doing their thing and possibly leaving candy. So I have to ask, but before I do, what type of candy would you leave if you were at Old Woman Cabin? What would you bring along, and what would you leave there? Michele, what kind of candy would you leave for the old woman?
I would leave Lindt, chocolate truffles, and Skittles.
I was going to say Skittles as well. Our buddy Bodie, who is our house Siberian, he is now 14 years old. He has been with me pretty much since we moved here to Alaska. He was the second dog that ever arrived here with his cousin, if you will, Reagan, who passed away a couple of years ago. But Bodie has had Skittles every single night of his life. We always give him a couple of Skittles right before bed, and it probably hasn't fared well for a dog's teeth, but he seems to love them, and I honestly don't care. Obviously, I'm a professional dog trainer as well, but hey, that dog loves Skittles. We even give him Skittles out on the trail, and we share them with his teammates when we're out running as well. But you know what I would leave, Michele? I bet you can guess.
I can't, actually.
I would leave Sour Patch Kids for sure.
Oh, well, I don't know if she would appreciate Sour Patch Kids, but I'm wondering, and I'm hoping that all of our listeners leave us a comment and tell us, what kind of candy would you leave the old woman?
Yes, so leave it in the comments of wherever you're listening, or follow us on socials. You can find us at Mushing Magazine or Mushing Mag.
And Robert, I'll tell you what, I'll put a post up later and ask everybody what candy they would leave.
There you go. So yeah, several of these guys will be arriving at Old Woman Cabin in the next day or so. So that portion of the trail is not over yet. So we wish all of those guys well out there for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Peace on Earth Pizza. I know we mentioned that 2 nights ago, and I talked about my Mushers Delight Pizza and what's on it, but I read a story today by Casey Grove at Alaska Public Media, and he had some really cool facts about it, and some that I didn't know. First off, that a few years ago, the infamous Ugly Dogs on social media, on X or /Twitter in particular, are just a force to be reckoned with on social media. And they decided that absolutely no musher should go without a pizza, because they thought, well, all of the, well-named mushers, the front of the pack, whoever, they would have no problems with people calling in and ordering them pizzas for them. So they decided to start a drive to make sure that everybody had a pizza, which I think is pretty dang cool. What an experience to have. And there was a quick interview with Matt Hall, and he said he walked into the checkpoint, I guess, yesterday or today or so, and was looking around and thinks, man, I sure would like to have a slice of pizza. And he saw a stack of 3 pizzas off to the side with the name Matt on it. And he thought, that's probably for Matt Failer. I'm going to go over and I'm going to steal a slice anyway. He probably won't care. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one. And he walked over and much to his delight, he had 3 pieces of pizza there waiting for him. And I thought that was so cool.
Just 3 slices, or he had 3 full pizzas?
3 full pizzas. He had 3 full pizzas.
So they weren't Matt Failer's.
Nope, they were for Matt Hall. So
I wonder if he left Matt a slice since he was going to sneak a slice of Failer's pizza.
Well, I'm sure that Matt had his own as well. One of the cool things that they can do at Peace on Earth is they can take messages for the mushers. And this started just a few years ago. So not only could people call in and order a pizza for their favorite musher with whatever topping, and it is of note that the pizza place is right next door to this family's home. So they're constantly running back and forth at all hours of the night, putting in pizza orders because they are sitting there watching the trackers just like all of us, and they see, oh, Dallas Evie is 8 miles out. We better go make his pepperoni, or we better go make Matt Failer his famous cheese pizza or whatever. So he's doing that. But one thing that they are doing is you can now send messages along with your pizza. And of course, a lot of them say good luck or way to go or whatever. But last year, Australian musher Christian Turner's wife called in from their home in Queensland, Australia, over 6,500 miles away. And she included a message from from their baby daughter. And the message says, "Love you, Daddy," from your bubby girl. And how cool is that? That the little baby is sending messages to her dad out on the trail. I think that's awesome. What do you think, Michele?
That is absolutely heartwarming. And, he did pretty good last year. So that just warms your heart all over to know that his little girl was cheering him on from so far away.
Speaking of babies and mushers, we posted a picture over on our Facebook page yesterday over on Mushing Magazine. It was a picture of Liz Failer and their brand new little baby boy. And they're watching a video on TV or on the laptop or something like that. And the little boy said that was Daddy or Dada on the screen. And I thought that was so awesome. And I got a chance to meet this little guy in Seattle a few months ago. It was relatively right after he was born. And Matt and Liz were there and waiting for a connection to go back home to Seattle. Actually, Liz and the baby were heading back home, and Matt had a longer layover because he was heading down to Minnesota or Wisconsin or somewhere to go buy a new dog truck and drive it home. So I got a chance to spend a little bit of time with their new little baby boy, Matt and Liz, and that's truly the connections. When you're meeting up with folks that literally live in your neighborhood and who you see on the trail, it's fun to meet them outside, isn't it, Michele?
It sure is. I'm surprised that y'all recognized each other without the parka and the hats and everything on. So I didn't know about that story. So that is super cool that you guys ran into each other and took a moment and, hey, neighbor, how's it going? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I have always said that I suffer from whatever affliction it is. I know that Brad Pitt has the same thing where I do not recognize a soul by face. I do not make that connection. And of course, that even goes with names. I could know you for years through your actions on mushing and your red parka or whatever. But if you walk up to me and I'm sitting there drawing a blank, I honestly have no idea who you are. And that's one of the main reasons if Michele is there, I don't say, hey, Michele, this is Matt Failer, or hey, this is so-and-so, because I don't know, do I, Michele?
No, you don't. I've told people for years, this is why you went ahead and married me, because I'm not afraid to say, hey, I know you, don't I?
Yeah, so there you go. So we had some babies and some mushers there, and the Peace on Earth pizza party, and it is not too late because there are several mushers that will be coming into Unalakleet in the next 24 hours or so. So get on the phone or the internet or however they do it and order these guys a pizza. And it will not go to waste. Even if you order a pizza and they have 3 or 4 sitting there, and obviously they cannot eat 3 or 4 large pepperoni pizzas, they will share them with other mushers. They will share them with the volunteers, the people in the community. All of that will not go to waste. And I know for a fact that just yesterday or the day before, Dallas Seavey rolled into Unalakleet, and of course he has a lot of fans, and I'm sure he had a lot of pizzas. He did not even stop. He just kept on running. He did the quick check-in of the particulars that you have to do, and then went out. I think
they might have run him out a slice.
Well, they may have, but as far as I know, it is in the checkpoint of the checkpoint. So it's in the building of the checkpoint. So it's not sitting out there right there on the trail. And if you do not have Iditarod Insider, if you're not familiar, most of the checkpoints are a little bit of a distance from where the dogs are parked. I remember when we were at Yetna last week, Michele, I kind of pointed out, okay, here's where the dogs are, and here's the checkpoint, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty good distance from most places, isn't it?
I would say at Yetna, it's a good quarter of a mile. But that's good, though, because it means it's getting the musher off the sled and able to get a little bit of walking going on, which is helpful for getting your body functioning correctly.
Yeah, we call it snow legs. We have those snow legs on our when we're on a sled for a long time, and it really starts to cramp up. And as Brenda Mackey said about her husband Will Rhodes the other day, every musher in the world has a bad back. And can you imagine what your back would feel like, good or bad, after 5, 6, 7, 8, or 900 miles on the trail? I think my back would be aching.
Seriously, crooked man syndrome. It's not your back, though. It's your feet.
Yeah, my feet, not necessarily my back, but I definitely feel it after 30 years of mushing. Everything is sore for sure. So let's jump over to one of our interviews that we did at the Iditarod Restart. Remember, Michele was doing these with a 10 or 12 mushers, so we're almost done with these, but I want to make sure that we drop one every day that we can. We do have a few interviews of mushers that scratched, and I'm interested to find out, should we air those? Because obviously they were very optimistic and ready to go out on the trail. And, I don't know if it's kind of bad juju to post interviews pre-race if they scratch. What do you think about that, thinking out loud, Michele?
I think they should still be aired.
Okay.
Because it was still they're still in the race mode, and even if they had to scratch, we're still memorializing the whole feel of Iditarod. And that kind of goes back to what we were starting with, Robert, the somberness of the unfortunate demise of a couple of dogs. And no one ever wants that. No one ever wants that, including the dog mushers, regardless of what the armchair mushers out there would like to say or think or assume. The mushers never want something like that to happen. And so I think that we should air all of the interviews that we did.
So tonight's interview is with Jason Mackey. Our relationship with Jason goes pretty far back, pretty much about the same time that we moved to Alaska. His late mom, Kathy Smith, used to live here very close to us in Meadow Lakes, Alaska, which is about halfway between Wasilla and Willow. And she used to own a company that sold supplies and dog meat and that sort of stuff. We used to go over there and pick up beaver for our dogs. We would feed those as snacks. And that is where we met Jason and his wife, Lisa. And we would inevitably show up and spend some time sitting around the table talking to Kathy. And almost always Jason and Lisa would be there. I think they were living there at that point there in Meadow Lakes. And we would all sit around the table and tell stories and talk mushing. And it was such a good time to really get to know these guys. I really enjoyed Kathy's company and, of course, Jason and Lisa's as well. So here is our short interview with Jason. Hope you like it.
Good morning, Jason. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's race day.
It's race
So,
day.
All year prepping. Now it's here. So if I'm not ready or if I don't have what I need, well, it's too late.
That's right. And I know that you've done a lot of preparation in the last few years. What do you think is going to make this team one of the best teams you've ever put together?
You know, honestly, you hear everybody say, oh, it's the best team I ever drove, it's the best team I ever had, blah. This truly is the best team I've ever had. The next closest to this team was my 2017 team, and that was combined half mine, half Lance's. And that's kind of what this is as well, with a few from Wade Mars, a few from Eddie that belong to Wade. So dogs that have been there. So this year actually is truly a veteran team. So that being said, I'd probably do what I want with them.
That's right. That's
So-
right. And I want to say probably the least amount of pressure
Yeah,
for you personally.
the only pressure that's on me is the pressure I put on myself. And, the leading up to this, you know what it's like trying to get ready for a race. You've been there. So I just got to hit the trail,
Yeah.
But the pressure that from last year to this year is just not even there. So, yeah.
And I think that that's going to put you in a completely different way out there on the trail without all of that other
Yep.
darkness,
Yep.
if I can be so bold. And I'm excited for you for that because the sun is rising for you.
Yeah.
And this team.
Oh, I hope so.
And I think that you're going to do fantastic. I got to know what your favorite checkpoint is.
Probably Shacktulik. Honestly, I've been held up in Shacktulik a few years, and the people in Shacktulik are just excellent. The volunteers, the people running the checkpoint, but I mean, most people say Shacktulik. Why Shacktulik? So when you spend the time that I have spent there, and get to know the people there's a little gal that comes around every year. I can't even remember her name, but she's so nice to all of us. She brings wristers to us. She builds them out of her own socks. I mean, it's just it's people like that. It's just the touching moments like that people don't get to see. So, yeah, I like Shacktulik. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I wish I'd go that far to 24, but it'd be a long way. You'd have to have a fast team.
You would.
So that's another thing. I never have been in a building at Takotna. So I'm set up to go to Takotna for my 24, as well as other places, but see what happens. Maybe that'll be my next favorite checkpoint. Because I've never, like I said, never been in a building there. Never ate the pie at Takotna, so.
You got to have one.
Yeah.
You look like you could use one.
Yeah, I know.
A little skinny bit.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. You're going to have an awesome
Cool.
opportunity this year.
Yeah.
And I just think that the trail is a brand new thing for you.
Yeah.
This time.
Well,
okay.
appreciate it. Thank you.
So much.
So there you have it, guys. Jason Mackey. And I want to give out a quick shout out to a show that we did right after last year's Iditarod. Jason and I sat down. I think he was the first interview that I did after Iditarod last year. And he and I had an extremely candid conversation. He and I, like we said, we've known each other for several years now. We truly opened up, and I would have to say, audio quality aside, I don't recall how good the audio quality is, but it was a very enlightening interview for sure. This guy, he's the real deal, isn't he, Michele?
Yeah, he's a true sourdough. He is of the land and for the land, and will continue to be a force in Iditarod, no matter where he places. He is at the beginning of creating his own legacy.
Yeah, and I think he's doing awesome. I look forward to following him along the trail every year, and definitely got to hook up with him when he gets done. He was commenting about our fancy Sled Dog Jeep that we purchased in the off-season out of necessity, our old 2002 Toyota Tundra. Pretty much was on the quits, and we had to act fast because we had to make sure that we could transport our dogs around. So we bought a relatively new 2020 Jeep Gladiator and did something that nobody else has done, I don't think, anywhere in the world, and turned a Jeep into a fully outfitted Sled Dog Jeep. And Jason, that was the first thing he said to me at the restart on Sunday. He said, "Oh my God, dude, I see you driving down the road all the time." He says, "You by far have the coolest dog truck in Alaska." And that made us both chuckle. And if you have not seen it, go check it out. I think it's on the Mushing magazine page. If not, go check us out on Team Aneke for sure.
Well, hold on, Robert. If you're going to plug it, it's got its own YouTube channel called the Sled Dog Jeep.
We do, and we're slowly building content of that for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the sea ice, and that's where the front runners are or have been. Most of the front of the pack has already made its way across, and many of the other mushers will be there in the next 12 to 24 hours ago. But this is always that notorious part of the trail that a lot of people talk about. We've always talked about the steps and the gorge and the Yukon and the burn, but this one probably gets more stories told about it than anything else because just of the mystique and the allure of it, that you're literally running across the ocean on a sea of ice to get from one place to another. And there has been a lot of trials and tribulations out there on this part of the trail. There's been people that have been rescued, and massive storms and losing their way and all sorts of stuff. But I'm sure you know the story of Balto and Togo. If you have not seen the movie, it is on Disney Plus, or I assume that you could probably buy it on Blu-ray or DVD. It is definitely a Disney-fied version of the true story, especially the sea ice scene where Leonard Seppala and his dogs are just doing the Disney thing out there. But that harkens back to the 1925 Serum Run, where they delivered the life-saving diphtheria medicine to the children of Nome, and they had hoped to have Leonard Seppala take off from Nome and work his way all the way across Alaska to pick up this medicine. And he took off running, and while he was on the trail, unbeknownst to him, they decided that they should do a relay where they were going to start on one side and start on the other, and then at some point meet up in the middle and hand over the package. Well, the story is that he left Nome with his trusty dogs, hoping to pick it up, but he did not know that another musher, Henry Ivanoff, was carrying the serum from Shaktoolik to Koyuk. This is about the very spot where Dallas and those guys had just passed through in the last day or so. It was only by chance that the two teams met on the sea ice. Had Leonard Seppala decided to take a shorter route rather than cross over the tenuous ice, he would have missed the serum. Ivanoff handed the serum off to Seppala, who immediately turned to begin the run back to Nome. And, of course, you probably know the rest of the story. So that is a very cool little tidbit, because when we were at the media briefing right before the Iditarod start, Mark Nordman had said, "I don't know if we're going to go over the sea ice. We might take the old mail trail around because the sea ice was already receding." And I assumed that old mail trail was the route that Seppala probably wanted to take, because that was the route that they had taken many times before. All of the mushers in the area would deliver supplies and mail and freight and everything across the trail versus...
Back in the day, I fed it wasn't called the old mail trail.
Yeah,
though.
it was called the mail trail back then. So back then, they were using a more inland trail versus the sea ice. And he just by chance happened to go over the sea ice and met up with Henry and handed off the serum. And then there we go. What do you think about that, Michele? You know, history is made, of course, by the events. But what do you think the story would have turned out to be if Seppala would have taken the other way?
You know, I just got to say, like Disney's version or not, they truly romanticized the story and made that adventure across the sea ice look harrowing and fun and super, super dangerous. So I give Disney props for that. I think that, you know, there's always that faith, right? No matter what you believe, whether you believe or not, there's always faith. And there was a lot of prayers and faith being had in those days and times to get that diphtherium over to those kids. And I'm just wondering, you know, what I said earlier about the juju at Old Woman Cabin. Maybe she had a wind blowing and whispered in Seppala's ear that he needed to go across the ice that day.
Take the sea ice, she said. So that is the story. And if you're not familiar, this coming winter, I believe it's in January of 2025, it will be the 100th anniversary of the serum run. And there's a lot of debate back and forth about, does the Iditarod pay homage to the serum run and so on and so forth. And you could debate about that forever. But hey, these guys are running on a lot of the same trails that these guys ran way back in 1925. Now, of course, this is a race with an entirely different mission and ideal and all of that. But I think it's a very cool story for sure. So,
hey, Robert, I wonder if the powers that be at Iditarod ever listen to our show. And if they do, or even if they don't, somebody has to be able to get word back to them that maybe, just maybe, they could use that route that they had to use a few years ago from Fairbanks across. And we could possibly consider homage that year and do a relay style.
Well, you never know. And the story that I was reading from, I was taking that from Iditarod.com, Eye on the Trail, Engine Through Caboose. It was published today by Terry Hankey, I believe is how you say her last name. I'm terrible with names, as I mentioned earlier. It was published today. So that is the story about the serum run and meeting on the sea ice and the connection to this year's race with Mark Nordman. So let us know in the comments what you think about our serum run connection. Is it good, bad, or indifferent? We would be happy to hear what you have to say. Let's turn it over to Michele and our Musher profile of the evening.
All right, Robert. We are going to talk about a wildlife technician, U.S. Forest Service member who got into dog mushing for the sheer love of adventure and getting outdoors. We are talking about none other than Gabe Dunham. And if you guys haven't learned about Gabe, you really should. She is a adventurer, a recreationist. She is a forestry person. She has a kennel that she calls Evermore Adventures right here in Alaska. But Gabe has spent much of her life in the West, Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, and Alaska. And she is the first woman in 2019 to finish the Rocky Mountain Triple Crown. She took second place. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it, Robert?
It is.
Yeah. And so I wanted to give a shout out to her and her accomplishments. Her website, you guys, if you go to evermoresleddogadventures.com. You will be sad, as I was, as that website does not seem to be working. So I would encourage you to go over to her Facebook page called Evermore Adventures. Give her a like and a follow. Maybe give her a message of encouragement, because she is out here living her best life and spending time with her dogs. Right now, Gabe is middle of the pack. I believe she is in 20th position as of this airing of this podcast. And that, I believe, puts her between Unikalit and Shaktulik, almost dead center.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Gabe. I know I reached out to her in the off season about being on our mushing podcast, and I'll reach out again for sure. But I'm sitting here reading through her bio, and yeah, she is a force to be reckoned with in the mid-distance and sprint world. It looks like that she did run the stage stop, which is a very impressive race in of itself. She also ran the Eagle Cap Extreme, the Race to the Sky, and as you mentioned, the Triple Crown. And she's listing Linwood and Kathy Fiedler as one of her sponsors. And I know that Linwood has been pretty much out of mushing for the last few years. He lives just north of us here in Willow, and I know he has helped field a couple of junior Iditarod teams over the years. And I wonder if she is running a bunch of his dogs, and he's one of those guys that is a mentor to a lot of people, and I'm sure he is definitely helping her out as well. Is this her rookie run as well, Michele?
Yes, I believe that it is, Robert.
Yeah, she attempted to run the race in 2020 and scratched. So this is her rookie run. And remember, guys, that even if you've entered before, if you did not finish the race, even if you scratch all the way at safety, you still are considered a rookie. You are a rookie until you truly finish the race. So she is out there on her rookie run. She's doing pretty good, dead set, middle of the pack at 20th place right now as we're recording. And we wish her well as well. So, Michele, do we have any other last news and notes before we talk about the next 24 hours?
No, I think we pretty much got everything in tonight that we did want to discuss. White Mountain is a breathtaking place. I was looking at some photographs of the village while we were doing the show tonight, and I always like trying to learn as much as I can about the checkpoints. But what is something you can share quickly about White Mountain that we might be able to dive deeper in tomorrow?
Well, for sure, it is the place where every musher has to take that mandatory 8-hour rest. So we will see that with every team coming up. And they are reporting that we will have a winner come in sometime Tuesday afternoon. So we will probably be reporting after we have a winner in Nome. In all the years that we've done this, and we have done some version of our Iditarod coverage since 2010, we have only done a live winning team one time. It was when Alex and I were hosting. I was hosting at the radio station KVRF in Palmer, and we were on the air live. It was not recorded as a podcast. It was going over the airways live, and we were one of the very first places to report that Dallas Seavey had won the Iditarod. I don't know if Dallas is going to win this year, but it's looking pretty good, isn't it, Michele?
It sure is. And Robert, was that the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth time he ran?
I think it was probably his first. I can't recall the year that we were doing that. For longtime listeners, you probably know. I'm speaking to you, Patty and Richard in San Diego. What year was it that we were reporting live when Dallas won the Iditarod? I would love to hear. But I don't think we will do a live reporting. We are not working at the radio station now. We only simulcast there, so they get our podcast later on. But hey, we will be on tomorrow at about the same time, 7 o'clock-ish Alaska time. And we will talk about whoever that eventual winner is. Let us know in the comments. I know we've done a lot of call actions tonight. Who do you think's going to win the Iditarod? Are you a big fan of them, or is your team that you're following further back in the pack? Let us know in the comments or on socials, and make sure you let us know tonight what candy you would leave the old woman at Old Woman Cabin. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.
Nobody covers dog sledding like Mushing from First Paw Media. Our team of athletes, volunteers, race organizers, and mushers like Robert and Michele Forto brings you closer to the sport. If it's happening, we are there. Live from the qualifying races in January and February, the Iditarod in March, and in the summer, Mushing takes you on the road with our team and trail tour. We connect you with a history of the sport, in-depth interviews with the top mushers, and great storytelling and breaking news all year long. Follow on mushing.com.